This video will provide a brief introduction to source types which can be used in a research assignment. Refer to your individual assignment guidelines or your instructor's guidelines for the types of sources you should be using. The first type of source to consider is a scholarly article. The purpose of a scholarly article is to advance knowledge in a specific field and to educate the reader. You may notice that scholarly articles utilize a primary account of research, which is research that has been conducted by the author or authors. Scholarly articles may also include an original argument or point of analysis. They are always narrowed and focused in subject, provide an in-depth discussion with support from outside sources, utilize elevated language appropriate for the field or subject that they are discussing, and they follow a peer review process. The authors of scholarly articles typically include scholars, those who study the field, or specialists, those who may work in the field. This could also include researchers in the specific field. The audience of a scholarly article includes scholars themselves, researchers, specialists, and students. This image provides an example of a scholarly article that you may find in a scholarly journal. You'll notice that this particular article was published in the Journal of Education for Business. It is important to note that scholarly articles are so incredibly narrowed and focused that an article written for the education of business would most likely not be published in a business journal, but rather a journal that focuses on the teaching of business students, whether they be undergraduates or graduates. The title of a scholarly article should be detailed enough that you can understand the broad topic or subject of the article. The author's names will be listed in order of amount of work contributed, not in alphabetical order. Additionally, scholarly articles should present an abstract for you to review. When you are reading the abstract, you are asking yourself the question of, does this fit my topic? Is this research appropriate for what I am attempting to argue or analyze? A scholarly article abstract will most likely provide a summary of the article, the research methods, the findings, conclusions, and/or recommendations. Because scholarly articles can range from 8 to 60 plus pages, they utilize section headings and subheadings in order to organize information. In this particular example, the section heading is implementing a professionalism recognition program. This indicates to the reader that the subsequent paragraphs will focus on that particular main point of the article. Subheadings break those sections down further. This is an organization technique that you will find in scholarly articles, but most likely will not find in a student essay. The goal of this is to organize information in a way that is both easy to understand and follow, and in a way that allows the reader to identify the specific points that they are going to use and cite. The second type of source to consider is a popular source. This is a very broad category of source type. The purpose of a popular source is to inform or entertain. You might notice that popular sources will reference research in a secondary manner, and they also may include opinion, narrative, interviews, etc. Popular sources are typically reviewed by an editorial staff, which may not be comprised of experts in the field or even academic researchers or scholars. The editorial staff maintains the goal of not just proofreading or editing, but ensuring that the content of the piece is appropriate for their publication and their readership. Authors of popular sources may include a journalist. A journalist may or may not be an expert in the subject, but they can conduct additional research, including interviews, observational research, and reading in order to gain the knowledge they need to present their point or their topic adequately. Popular sources may also include other types of sources as well, such as social media postings like a tweet, or a personal blog or personal website. Those types of sources will require that you conduct additional levels of evaluation in order to ensure that the content is accurate and appropriate for the assignment that you are completing. The audience of any popular source will be a general audience. This could be the general public, or it could be a general group of people who are interested in the subject but are not yet experts in the subject. An example of a popular source is the New York Times. The New York Times is going to have a vast readership. Articles published in the New York Times will still be written towards a general public, but articles published in the New York Times are going to be written by journalists who are well trained in the field of journalism. Those journalists may conduct additional research and discuss that research or discuss someone else's work in order to explain their ideas and add credibility to their article. These articles are largely speaking informative, though newspapers such as the New York Times or news organizations such as the New York Times do provide opinionated pieces and editorial pieces as well. Another example of a popular source would be ESPN. On the ESPN website, you can learn about one specific subject, sports. In this example, we see an article on Major League Baseball third baseman. What you'll notice in the example is that there are still links to other sources that help the reader gain the knowledge they need in order to understand the subject itself. And there's additional research, including statistics on individual players as well. While ESPN's readership may not be as large as the New York Times, it is still going to be written towards a general population, and information is added so that those who do not have background knowledge can learn more about the subject and understand the content of the article. Both are equally good and reputable popular sources. One last example of a popular source might be a school website or a school news source. Again, this source is not going to have the vast readership that the New York Times has, and it is going to include examples, images, and topics that are appropriate for the smaller community of the school. This is still a legitimate type of popular source. The third type of source to consider is a trade source or trade publication. The purpose of a trade publication is to provide practical industry information for the reader. You may notice that trade publications will utilize elevated language that is specialized for a field or a job, but it may not be as specialized as a scholarly article. The goal of a trade publication may not be to present new research or new information, but rather to inform the reader so that they can perform the tasks of their job better or understand a concept better. Trade publications typically look like a magazine, not like an academic journal. The information is still credible, though. Trade publications are evaluated by editorial staff, just like a newspaper would be evaluated by an editorial staff, but in this case, the editorial staff is most likely comprised of experts in their field. The authors of trade publications include industry professionals, those who have worked in the field, those who have a good understanding of the field, and those who conduct research in the field. This may also include journalists with expertise. This could be because they write about the field frequently and thus are now learned in the subject or the field, or because they have worked in the field previously. The audience of a trade publication is different than the audience of a popular source. The audience of a trade publication is going to include those who work in the field, so industry professionals, and those who are interested in the specific topic. An example of a trade publication might be Psychology Today. This website is open for any reader. However, it is geared towards those who work in the field of psychology, whether they be a psychiatrist, a counselor, or an educator. In this example, what you will notice is that the author's credentials are elevated. This particular author has a terminal degree, a PhD, in their field. In this example, we can also identify links to outside sources that can help inform the reader further. But you will also see that there is very subject-specific information and references to specific scholarship. This may be different from a popular source because the information is not discussed in a way that is meant to teach, but in a way that we know the reader should have at least some understanding of the subject before they begin reading this article. Select sources for any research topic. Ensure that those sources fit the appropriate source type that your instructor requires, that they provide an appropriate type of information, and that all sources are evaluated.